Go ahead. It started. I did it.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's presentation. I'm Lisa. I'm the marketing coordinator here at AIHM, and I'm filling in for Tabby today. I am very excited to get started on today's topic, which is longevity and health span medicine, a new paradigm in medicine. And if we could go to the next slide. And as people are coming in and getting settled, I would like to take a minute to talk about the Academy of Integrative Health and Medicine. We are a global interprofessional integrative health association, and we're working to transform healthcare, body, mind, spirit, community, and planet. I'd also like to invite everybody to subscribe to our YouTube channel. The link is listed at the bottom of the slide and also in the chat. You can find all of our webinars on our YouTube channel, so please subscribe and take a look at any past webinars that might interest you, and you can also see any future ones that come up as well. Next slide. Also, for those of you who are interested in our fellowship program, I'd like to invite you to go to our website to learn more. If you do apply, please mention this webinar today and you can get $1,500 off of tuition. Our next cohort is going to start in October. And with that, I would like to welcome and introduce our special guest speaker today. Dr. McNally is a dual licensed naturopathic doctor in both California and Pennsylvania. He has extensive experience in hormones, weight loss, mental health, internal medicine, gerontology, and health span and longevity medicine. Dr. McNally completed his residency at Yale University and his integrative residency at the University of Bridgeport. He teaches at the Academy of Integrative Medicine in our fellowship program. He also worked for the World Food Program in Rome, Italy on international nutrition and health projects in developing nations. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Dr. McNally.
All right, thank you, Lisa. I appreciate that introduction. I'm going to now do the hardest part of the presentation, which is to try to share my screen here. So bear with me a second.
No problem.
All right, fantastic. Lisa, can you see that okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here today. I've actually been with AIHM for several years now, working as part of their fellowship faculty. And I'm here to talk today about longevity and health span, which is something that I'm extremely passionate about and probably will be spending the rest of my career working in this area. I'm inherently drawn to developing areas, and there isn't anything more challenging and exciting than trying to change the direction of the aging process with human beings. I mean, it's nice because it applies to everybody. We're all aging, and we all know the associations of the aging process in terms of diseases and symptoms and so forth. And so while the aging process has both pros and cons, the pros being the accumulation of life experience and wisdom, and it's such an important part of our culture, and the amazing ability to transfer down information and counsel based on our experiences are a wonderful part of the aging process. But there are parts that are less wonderful, as we all know, the changes in our body, our ability to move the same way we did when we were younger, the changes in our skin and our hair, the impacts kind of our system-wide, the changes in our body habitus, increasing generally and obesity and then of course towards the end of the years, the decreases in muscle mass that we experience in the elderly years, And so, the overall goal is to keep people as healthy and functional as long as possible. That's the overarching goal. All right, next slide. There we go. All right, this is my background. It was already kind of gone through here, but I do hold 2 licenses in the state of California as an ND and a PA. I've worked with the academy for many years, and my residency and so forth was already mentioned, so I'll just skip that. A couple other little things about me. I'm a former athlete, Division I athlete for University of Massachusetts. So health and wellness has always been part of my upbringing and my early years in being involved in sports. And I have just kind of continued that trajectory on into medicine and wellness, my education. And then here's my contact information. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, contact me. I'm always willing to have a discussion, or if there are questions, I'm always happy to chat. I love what I do, and I'm always interested to have a discussion or answer a question. So please feel free. Also, I will mention that I do run a Facebook support group. It's I don't know if you can see it down there at the boot of my bar here. It's the Southern California Longevity Support Group. And so if anyone has any interest in kind of hearing about events and things like that, like for example, this event was published on there, please feel free to reach out and join the group. We post articles and events and try to support people's interest in longevity and Healthspan. All right. So I don't have any conflicts of interest. The only conflict I have down there was kind of a bit tongue in cheek here, but I'm living and I don't want to die, and therefore I'm conflicted and have a vested interest in all endeavors that may lead to a longer health span. So for whatever that's worth, that's my conflict. Here's the outline. We're going to discuss is aging a disease, right? So that's a very controversial question. Some people have thought about that, others haven't. But we're going to present some information, see what you all think about whether aging would classify as a disease or not. Some observations from the animal kingdom. I really think if you're posing questions about human health span and lifespan, you have to be a scientist and observe what does life look like on our planet, and you can extrapolate information from that. At least kind of paints a nice kind of landscape or backdrop on the question of can we augment or change the trajectory of the aging process. We'll talk about the rate of centenarians. We'll talk about the evidence for a modifiable lifespan. Some of the information on gerontology. So the hallmarks of the aging process. We've made a lot of progress over the last 20 years, I would say, on our understanding of the physiology of the aging process. What's the physiology and the pathophysiology? So what's the normal, in the young years in terms of the human physiology, and then what are the changes that occur over time? And there's been a lot of progress in that area, which I find very interesting. And of course, that paves the way for interventions. We'll talk a bit about calorie restriction and intermittent fasting as well, because the calorie restriction was actually one of the earliest things that we found in animal models that have interesting results on lifespan, and then have kind of paved a pathway to look for things that either mimic calorie restriction or play into the same pathways that calorie restriction impact. And so we'll touch on that, and intermittent fasting, the last one. This presentation could go on and on and on and on. I actually had to cut myself off because I didn't think we'd have enough time to get through everything. So I want to do a lot more, but there's definitely a lot to go through. So let's talk about some general definitions in case this is a fairly new area to people. So health span is the first one. So health span basically is the amount of healthy years over time. So it doesn't necessarily 100% correlate with longevity. It's really talking about how many healthy years are in a human lifespan. And so perhaps you get 80 healthy years, and then the last 5 are unhealthy years. So your health span would be 80 years. And so whereas longevity or lifespan is quantity, right? So whether it's good or bad or in between, it's just how many number of years are you alive. So that's the difference there. We are seeing that as we try to change lifespan, if you inherently uphold health span, the thought is, and there's some evidence to support this as well, is that lifespan also increases. So you are kind of doing the same thing. So that some people really don't like the idea of elongating human lifespan. And for those that don't, well, the focus on health span, because you're probably going to do the same thing regardless. And then the most common argument against longevity, there's concerns about resources, there's concerns about people being on things like Medicare longer, and there's all sorts of kind of ethical aspects of arguments against longevity. We won't get into all that today. It's beyond the scope of what I can accomplish in a segment, but it is really interesting. I've heard a lot of interesting conversations in this arena. I'd say the most common argument against longevity or the ability to change it is that everyone historically has died. If you have lived, you have at some point died, and or you will in the future. So that's what we see, and so we oftentimes draw conclusions about our that are really a product of our human experience. But it doesn't mean that they can't be modified, right? Because up until we were able to put a rover on Mars, we thought it was impossible, that we could actually get to the planet Mars. Well, that's now changed. We've had many rovers on planet Mars, and we likely will have a human being on Mars maybe within the next 10, 20 years or so. So, science is one of those things. It's until it's proven impossible, it's possible. And that's the fun of science and the fun of the learning processes. Come up with a problem, you come up with your theories and then try to solve them. And that's the fun of science. And in this case, we're talking about human health. So you get a huge bonus out of that as well by making people healthier. All right, and then the difference between clinical geriatric medicine and longevity medicine. So, geriatrics is a conventional profession. So there are geriatricians who focus just on older populations. And what I will largely say is that is generally very different than longevity medicine. And what we generally see is, how do we adapt the conventional medical system to older populations? What are the unique aspects of older adults that we need to take into place? What modifications do we need to do? How do we modify pharmacotherapy, to fit these populations? That's largely what geriatric medicine is. And then, of course, end of life. The longevity is totally different. I mean, sure, all those things play a role in longevity medicine, but the focus is really on taking the human health span, the healthy years, and driving healthy years further into the future. So it encompasses preventive medicine, it encompasses technology, it encompasses portions of conventional medicine and diagnostic screening, and so forth. So there's a lot of overlap between conventional medicine, integrative medicine, and longevity medicine, but there are also many differences, and we'll talk about what those differences are. All right, so nobody is going to be surprised by this, right? So aging is a major risk factor for the leading cause of disease in the United States, right? So cardiovascular disease, cancer, lower respiratory infections, stroke, Alzheimer's, these are the top 5, depending on the year you're looking at. Sometimes cancer and cardiovascular disease switch spots, but these are the things that drive mortality in older ages, and so clearly it is a major risk factor. So if aging is modifiable, then we now have a approach that we are not currently using to try to not only prevent death, but to improve and prevent these illnesses from occurring. All right, and so why don't we currently treat aging? It's not generally considered modifiable, but we're going to talk a bit about that. All right, so the first question is, challenging conventional wisdom here. What if aging is modifiable, right? If it is, and I'm going to try to make a strong argument that it's modifiable, then that completely changes our approach. I think we now need to say, well, if it is modifiable, then how do we put together, therapeutic programs for people and implement those in healthcare? Because that's going to, make major changes in the human experience. All right, so the impact of aging as a disease, right? So if aging is considered disease, it's not just kind of semantics here, right? So one of the obstacles right now to getting funding to study either an agent or anything really to see if it impacts aging is not classified federally as a disease state. And so therefore, it's not going to get any funding from the government, from the NIH or anything like that to actually do clinical trials. So what they are currently doing is when they're looking to see if a drug will impact the aging process, they're studying it with a specific disease process. That's kind of their workaround right now. Whereas if we change our viewpoint on the aging process, we can actually start to dedicate federal dollars towards directly treating the aging process with the hope of changing the directory of all these diseases that we see in older ages, so diabetes and cancer and heart disease and so forth. We already spend loads of money on those, but this will open up another avenue if we change the definition. I mentioned already that we'll have better chronic disease management. So it's basically only going to enhance what we do right now. It's going to make it better. And then, of course, everybody wants more quality years, right? They want to be youthful as long as possible, right? Because that's generally high quality of life, and that's what we're looking for. So if someone can work into their 90s because they're cognitively intact and they have energy and they enjoy what they're doing, that's fantastic. But a lot of people, have the attitude or they paint that kind of life picture of, I'm going to work to 65, then I'll retire because I have to get, I have to get they had a few quality years in before I pass. Well, I look at that differently, and I think we can kind of challenge that viewpoint. And then longevity benefits, of course, everyone wants more time. All right, so is aging a disease? Okay, so there's a million definitions of aging, okay? Excuse me, of disease state, okay? So I just picked one from dictionary.com. There's a million out there that are very similar to this. So it's kind of a moot point which one I chose. I didn't want to put a million on here and just have a million different definitions. This one is very similar to many of the definitions that are out there. So the question is does aging classify as a disease based on the definition of the disease? So dictionary.com says a disorder of structure or function, especially one that produces specific signs or symptoms that affects a specific location and is not simply a direct result of a physical injury. Okay, so, well, the aging process is not the result of a physical injury. I mean, maybe you could make some arguments that there are environmental impacts that create physical injury, but it's more complex than that. Is it a disorder of structure or function? Well, I mean, you can go system by system and talk about the effects of the aging process on it, right? We start to gain weight, our hormones change, our ability to assimilate food and nutrients changes as we age, and the list goes on and on and on. So I would argue that it is a disorder of structure and function. And does it produce specific signs or symptoms? Well, if you picture in your mind, what does an aged person look like? All of those are signs and symptoms, right? So, gray hair, wrinkled skin, ambulation changes, likelihood of falling, organ function, likelihood of diabetes or chronic disease, cardiovascular disease. All of those are specific signs and symptoms. And so because of that, I do believe that aging does fit the definition of a disease. All right, so this is evidence from the evidence of longevity from the animal kingdom. So, the first thing I do as a scientist is if I want to pose an idea, right, an idea to a very complex question of can we change the trajectory of the aging process, I first want to look out there and say, okay, well, how long do living beings on this planet live, right? And so there's some really interesting information that we can get from this. So here we go. I want to do this in reverse order. I wasn't savvy enough with my PowerPoint here, so forgive that. This is the most exciting one. So this is the Immortal Jellyfish, okay? This is a real thing. This is not fake. This is not made up. This is a real living organism on this planet, okay? It is biologically immortal. And we're going to see a little video clip on this in a second, but basically the 10,000 foot view is you can kill an immortal jellyfish. If you take it in your hand, you squish it, it dies, right? But when it starts to senesce and get old or it is threatened, it will actually change into a youthful organism and float down to the bottom of the tank or pool or ocean, and then it will it'll grow again, it'll become an adult again. So it can do this process over and over and over, and that's why we consider it biologically immortal. And the mere fact that there's something on this planet that can do that is absolutely phenomenally interesting to me. It baffles me. It's kind of beyond comprehension. But again, that's the wonder of science and kind of exploring these areas is you see really amazing things like this. Nothing quite else on this list is as exciting, but how about an ocean quahog that can live for 507 years? That's a long time, right? Here is the Greenland shark, can live up to 400 years, okay? And these aren't averages, these are like the oldest known. So this isn't maybe the typical Greenland shark or ocean quahog, but regardless, it's a long time. Koi fish have been recorded to live up to 226 years. Red sea urchin has been recorded to live up to 200 years. The bowhead whale, I believe this is a bowhead over here, and on my, oh no, this is the Greenland shark, okay. So the bowhead whale can live up to 200 years. The Galapagos giant tortoise can live up to 152 years. Humans, up to 122 and 664 days. And the long-finned eel, 106. And the macaw up to 80. And so I wanted to do the top 10, and this is just, I'm not an animal science specialist or veterinarian or anything like that, but this is just from searching on, internet searches on longevity of organisms within or on our planet. And so the point really here is to just show the diversity of how long organisms live on this planet, because if every organism, if everyone had a common exit point, so everyone, let's say every organism exited their lifespan around 122 years, we could make an argument from our observations that lifespan is fixed, right? But there's incredible diversity, right? And it spans lots of different types of creatures. Like obviously the ocean quahog is quite small and it's in the ocean, right? The Greenland shark is huge, right? So it's clearly not size that dictates this. But both are in the ocean. Koi fish is in water as well. Sea urchin water. Bowhead whale, like another huge organism, that's water as well. Now the giant Galapagos tortoise is a land-based animal. So, and it's not quite as impressive at 152 years, but I'd take 152 healthy years or close to it. And so, clearly organisms that are land-based can live, long lives as well. Human beings, again, 122 and 164 days. And then an eel, 106, macaw, 80. So there's another species there with a bird. So, elephants live a pretty big lifespan as a land animal as well. I think they're somewhere in the ballpark of say 60 to 80. So there's lots of examples of both water-based organisms and land-based organisms that live healthy lifespans, both big and small. So that's really the diversity that I wanted to drive home here. Here we go. So I'm going to see if this will work. It's just going to be a little clip here, about a minute long. I just found it really interesting, and they do it better than I can do it, and you'll see why here in a second. But if it doesn't, you can always look this up on YouTube. You just type in the Immortal Jellyfish, and it'll pop up. But let's give it a go here. Oops.
Hi there, welcome.
Sorry, just going through a little brief commercial here before we get to it.
And I think because you're just sharing your PowerPoint, if it's opening in another screen, we might not be able to see it.
So let me stop share and reshare, so that way
Yes.
we can get it. That way,
Great, thank you.
have a nice. There we go. Thank you for there it is. There. Thank you for pointing that out. I appreciate that. All right. So here's the Immortal Jellyfish.
Is there sound?
Yes.
I think you have to share so that we hear your computer audio. Sorry, we should have checked, but we're not hearing the sound if there is sound.
Oh, yes.
So if you stop sharing and go to reshare again, you should be able to select your audio as well.
Aha, thank you. Sorry about the technical difficulty there. Let's try this again. Let's see. And so we click on it and then share sound. I see that now. Okay. You know, here, let's load back up then and try again so that way we can get the the audio, which is important.
One of the most incredible organisms living in the oceans of planet Earth is the Teratopsis dohrnii, more commonly known as the immortal jellyfish. It is a tiny transparent jellyfish that was first discovered in the 1880s in the Mediterranean Sea, but can be found in many oceans around the world. The thing that makes this strange, almost alien-like creature so incredible is that it is biologically immortal. This means that the creature can be killed, but doesn't seem to die from old age. Most jellyfish species have a relatively fixed lifespan, but this jellyfish is capable of reverting completely to a sexually immature stage after having reached maturity, which is kind of like a butterfly changing back to a caterpillar instead of dying. The immortal jellyfish begins its life as a larva called a planula. The planula eventually settles on the sea floor.
Okay, so I think that really kind of illustrates the point, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but that is absolutely incredible. You know, when I found that, and ironically, as I'm sharing my screen again, I'll share the little kind of funny component of this is I actually learned about this from my children. So they told me that they watched a show called Aquanauts, which if you have kids, you may know what that is. And lo and behold, I was watching it with them and I learned about it. I had to go look it up because I thought it was not real. And I found this, and so I've been fascinated with it ever since. Let's see, is this working here?
Yeah, we see your slide. Oh, there it goes.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. And thank you for bearing with me on that, on the technical difficulties there. All right, so this is the, so basically this is a summary slide. I've already talked about this. There's considerable heterogeneity within the animal kingdom in terms of longevity. There's no common fixed lifespan between organisms, but though there may be within organisms, I would again challenge that, but that's still a possibility. Some really extraordinary examples, one of immortality, which is kind of almost beyond comprehension. The question is, of course, does this translate to humans? We don't know yet, but we'll present some information that will make you, think about it. And then what about I think this does at least partially establish some biological plausibility that we can augment or change the lifespan, okay? So here's the US life expectancy. I've had to add a couple points to this chart to update it a little bit, 2016, 2018. We do expect to see some changes because of COVID-19 with 2020 and so forth and moving forward. So that'll be kind of interesting to see. But imagine if you were born in 1911 and the average human being, or let's say you were an adult, 20-year-old in 1911, the average human being around you, what you saw on average would be people dying around the age of the early 50s, right? Now that is drastically different to today's day and age, where the average lifespan in the United States for a man or woman is somewhere around 80, right? And so women always outperform men, or commonly outperform men in longevity. And certainly that is, you can see that by the trend of the pink line there versus the blue line. Lifespan does change over time in terms of our ability to make increases in health and wellness, and then it does change the average person's lifespan. This is affected by a lot of things, right? This is affected by public health, vaccines, changes in our emergency medical system, changes in surgeries, more therapeutics for cardiovascular disease and cancer. So, all these providers that are getting into the wellness industry and promoting preventive healthcare and natural therapeutics and really implementing integrative medicine and lifestyle medicine, these are all changing the average lifespan. So there's a lot of factors, but really the point is the average lifespan keeps going up. It's clearly not fixed. And that though we have seemed to plateau a bit here, you know, from 2011 to 2008, there hasn't been very big changes. We saw plateaus other time periods as well. So between 1951 and 1971, there was only a 2-year change in the lifespan of a man. There was a little bit more in a female. So we do see plateaus, and that's probably what we're encountering right now. But then we will oftentimes see changes in technology, changing in abilities to promote human health, and then you'll start to see upward gains again. So I don't think this is a plateau where this is it and we're fixed. I do think we will continue to see changes and increase the life expectancy of the human population. All right, how about centenarians? So these are folks that reach 100 years old. And so this is from United Nations, right? So this is worldwide. This is not just the U.S. So in 1950, there were about 33,000 centenarians. Okay, and then you can see it kind of dips actually through the 60s and 70s. And I don't necessarily have an explanation for that because I don't study epidemiology. But you can see in the 1990s, right? There were let's see, about 100,000 people that are reaching centenarian status. By 2010, you were getting close to 300,000, maybe 270,000. And by 2020, there was 573,000 people, almost 600,000 people reaching 100 years old. So something is changing, right? So our ability as a globe to deliver better healthcare and have lifestyle measures and get people to stop smoking and save, and improve infant mortality, all these things allow people to live into their older ages, and some get lucky and live a lot longer. So I find this to be another really interesting phenomenon that we keep seeing more and more people reaching 100 years old or older. All right, so here's a projection. Okay, this projection was from 1996. Okay, and they were looking at, and I believe this one is, this one's the CDC. U.S. Bureau of Census. Okay, so it's from the census, so it is government and it is U.S. based. So this one is projecting centenarians, and so 2000 they projected 72,000. They projected 131,000, 2010, and you can see the upward trend. Here's by 2050 in the United States, they're projecting 834,000 centenarians. So again, COVID might actually hit that in terms of preventing some of that, because it did unfortunately impact a lot of older populations. But I still find this really fascinating that we are growing older on average, and then the ability of people to reach 100 years and older keeps growing. I think it's more evidence that the lifespan is modifiable. All right, so let's look at some of the outliers here, some of the oldest human beings. So I think this is important as well. So you'll see a trend here. You see a lot of Japanese folks who have lived very, very long, some still living. So there's 217. This is the top 10. So number 8, Emma, Italian woman, lived to 117. Lucille Randon, 117. She's from France. She's actually still living. So she's every day by day, she's ticking that number up. Violet Brown from Jamaica lived to 117. Marie, 117, Canada, she's deceased. Nabi, Japan, deceased as well, 117. Kane Tanaka, 118 years, and she's still living. She's Japan. She's actually the oldest living human being right now on the planet, and she's still, still kicking, and as far as I know, doing okay. And she's number 3 overall. Sarah Noss, 119. She's from the United States. She's passed and 119 years old. And then there's Jean Clement. She lives an astounding 122 years and 164 days. She was from France, but she is the oldest human being ever to be recorded. Now, of course, our recording only goes back about 100 years or so. Beyond that, recording gets a lot more fuzzy. So it's possible that someone has lived longer, although unlikely. There's a lot of reports out there, but this is really the only one that we can actually definitively say. And if you do any sort of Googling, you will see there are some conspiracies with Jean Clement about her assuming her daughter's identity. I'm sorry, her daughter assuming her identity and perhaps but there isn't a lot of evidence. It seems like more of a conspiracy theory than anything. Nonetheless, it is interesting. And the oldest living man, men didn't make this particular top 10 list, but here's the oldest living man is now deceased, was from Japan, 16 years, 64 days. And currently the oldest living man, Emilio, there is 112 years, 226 days, and it's from Puerto Rico. He's living. So, I think the main thing there is, it does kind of paint the picture of what we can observe and report on in terms of human lifespan. So certainly, I think the possibility of getting people to live more youthfully into their 80s, 90s, and maybe early hundreds is certainly a short-term goal that we could set. And I think that is most likely achievable. And then beyond that, I do think we probably can achieve more. But I think it's important to paint kind of more near-term realistic projections. And then, these aspiring projections, which I think are possible, but are a little harder to convince people of. Summary slide. So there is some heterogeneity within the human lifespan, especially if you compare the outliers with the average, anywhere from 80 to 122. Increasing number of people living to very old age status. And then currently the maximum human lifespan based on what we can say that we've observed is 114 to 122 years. Okay, that's based off the top 100 oldest human beings. So again, I think this provides more data of biological plausibility. All right, so now we get into, can we change the trajectory of lifespan? Can we increase lifespan in organisms? Okay, and so you might recognize our little friend down here, C. elegans. And so a lot of studies, not surprisingly, are done on small organisms that have short lifespans, because you can implement therapies and record the data over a short time frame. If you were trying to do longevity studies on a primate or on a human being, you'd need teams of researchers, that would be studying, die off, and then another team come on and carry out the research over time, because it's so long. It takes so long to do these studies on longevity that we have to use organisms as a proxy. Okay, and so C. elegans is one of the ones that we use. So 2010, Kenyon et al. It became clear that the aging process was plastic and capable of being accelerated or attenuated by a range of dietary and genetic interventions. So this is, we could say conclusively in 2010 that we could modify the lifespan of an organism. Okay, so if you can do this in a small organism, it's possible you can do this in larger organisms as well. Now, this is a very busy slide, but it's not really designed for me to go in depth and go through any detail. I simply wanted to throw out there in one slide evidence for modifiable lifespan in different organisms as well as human beings. So this first one here is nutritional lithium. So this is not lithium carbonate that we use for bipolar. This is small dose nutritional lithium like ortate or aspartate in a very, very, very small dose, like 5 milligrams. Which is, again, much different than lithium we use for bipolar disease. Promotes longevity in hormesis in fission yeast, C. elegans, and Drosophila. Okay, so that's 3 small organisms that that lithium was able to demonstrate modifiable lifespan by increasing longevity. So we have here another interesting one on lithium that I thought was worth putting in. This is from 2011. And so this one was an observation study, so you can't draw firm conclusions, but I just found it interesting. So they studied lithium in drinking water, and they compared populations. So folks that had drinking water that had higher lithium levels were associated with longer lifespans than folks that had lithium in smaller quantities. And so again, that coupled with other data here, I think is interesting, and certainly promotes some possibility there with human beings. But again, we can't get ahead of ourselves. That's where the data is on lithium. There has been, to my knowledge, no evidence or no studies done on mice, although that is the natural next step, is to do it on a mammal to see if lithium will do anything on the lifespan of a mammal. Other ones here we have metformin, also can extend lifespan of C. elegans. Okay, that was from 2017. Here's a triple drug approach: lithium, rapamycin, and trametinib. So a 48% lifespan extension on Drosophila, which is a huge lifespan extension. Now, they did need to use 2 pharmaceutical agents in a nutritional supplement on this to get that, but that was a really big lifespan gain on these little flies. Okay, And so that one was from 2019. Here's another one on metformin. It improves the lifespan and health span of mice. So now metformin has shown it in small organisms as well as mammals, right? So whenever you see an agent that is extending lifespan on organisms like flies and worms, but also then will extend the lifespan in a mammal, right? Well, none of those are human, and you can't claim human until we actually do it or show it somehow. The impact on the pathways are probably preserved through the organisms, right? So metformin is impacting organisms in certain pathways, right? It increases, it's an mTOR inhibitor. It increases AMPK, and we don't have to get into too much, about what that means for the sake of this, but these are preserves throughout different organisms. And so it's very exciting when we see the results go from yeast to C. elegans to Drosophila to mice. The likelihood of it transmitting to larger mammals is much higher. Here's one of the berberine. So berberine is a supplement. And this one was from 2020, increased lifespan of mice, okay, which was really interesting. So that's a promising one. That's really just in the past year or so. Here's one here, 17-alpha estradiol, increased the lifespan, of male mice. And so that one was also really interesting, although it was only men. It was only male mice, it was not female. And then rapamycin extends the lifespan in mice as well. And rapamycin right now is the single most promising longevity and lifespan enhancing agent out there. And that is that's my opinion, and that is shared by a lot of leading gerontologists as well. All right. So that is designed to give you an idea that we are routinely, with lots of different methodologies, extending lifespan of organisms. So at least I think that is good evidence that lifespan is not fixed, that it is modifiable. And so all of the research that goes into finding agents that can do this, I think is worthwhile and really exciting. So in 2008, a gentleman by the name of Aubrey de Grey, who's a PhD, came up with this he tried to summarize pillars or hallmarks of aging. And so he came out with this here. So stem cell loss, basically, nuclear mutations. So, AKA generally these are cancer, mitochondrial mutations. So that's another, it's specific DNA that's held within the mitochondria that is susceptible to mutation, whereas the nuclear mutations are a little hardier because of the nuclear structure. Though possible, obviously, because cancer is a big problem. Then we have the senescent cells creating an inflammatory kind of sick phenotype. That's what we call here the death-resistant senescent cells, or the SASP, the senescent associated secretory phenotype. Basically, what this means is cells go through the aging process, and some die, and then some don't, right? They can no longer divide, but they're still sticking around, and what they're doing is they're creating a lot of inflammation within the body, and they make healthy cells around it sick. So the thought is, and this is just a theory, we can't conclusively say that we know this yet, but senescent cells and all of the byproducts of these cells are actually leading to the decline of the overall organism. And so there's a big push to try to find ways to clear these old senescent cells that are promoting inflammation in the body due to old age. Glycation, so you can think of that as simply, whether it be diabetes, prediabetes, or just simply the byproduct of having glucose in your bloodstream over a long period of time does cause glycation issues. And then we have extracellular and intracellular aggregates, which are basically proteins gunking together and causing problems both inside and outside the cell. And so, these are kind of a structure for how do we view the aging pathologies, and then how do we find therapies that will try to hit these various components, because there is not going to be, in my opinion, one thing that we do that is going to significantly impact health span and lifespan. In 2013, we had another group come out with hallmarks of aging. These were, I believe, 9, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, yes. They're very, very similar to what Aubrey de Grey came out with in 2018. We have telomere erosions, epigenetic alterations, stem cell depletion, again, senescence, mitochondrial dysfunction, genomic instability, proteostasis imbalance, impaired nutrient sensing, and abnormal intracellular communication. So very, very similar, although a couple of the categories have been split out into distinct categories. So that was encouraging. These is very distinct groups of researchers basically coming to the same conclusion. All right, so let's take a step back now. I spent a lot of the time talking about, what we can do, or is aging a disease? Is lifespan modifiable? Let's look at the current model and compare it to a Healthspan model. So one current model, medical model, says that aging is not a disease. Healthspan model says it is. Okay. Is aging a modifiable risk factor? Not considered by the current medical model. Healthspan longevity model says it is modifiable. Current medical model says do not treat aging. Healthspan longevity model says treat aging. Detection or cancer screening, early detection, it's about the same. Only I would say in Healthspan longevity model, you're using a lot more biomarkers and doing a lot more on the screening and monitoring part. You're actually looking for chemical pictures or chemical footprints of youth, and you're trying to promote those into the old age groups. Same thing, chronic disease management, you're doing the same thing, you're doing acute care on both sides. So there is a lot of overlap. I will say though that the Healthspan longevity is generally integrative and functional. And so you are having, emphasis on food quality, intermittent fasting, quantifying movement and getting people to move, optimizing sleep. And so not all of that is necessarily in the conventional medical model. And then of course, your goal is to not only treat pathology, and do prevention and optimize the human body, but also to treat disease and optimize what you can from the disease process. So there are distinct similarities, but there are also distinct differences that I think makes the Healthspan longevity model really a new paradigm. Okay, looks like I had a redundancy here, my apologies. So my question, is if you think about in the conventional model, an asymptomatic, normotensive non-smoker at a normal weight and height with a normal cholesterol level, what are we doing for that person? And the answer is generally nothing, right? That's usually we'll do an annual physical and blood work, and then we'll see in a few years unless something's going on. That's generally what the conventional medical model is doing. And then me as a provider, and in my opinion, I'm fundamentally opposed to that kind of mentality, because I think we can do a lot more from people. And I know integrative communities generally share that same mentality. Okay, I'm going to get into the last two pieces here. So I wanted to go a bit through calorie restriction, because this was the early areas of finding interventions that can impact lifespan. So really the theory is this. The thought is, with calorie restriction, right, you are basically shifting resources away from reproduction into maintenance of the human body, right? So a lot of resources when the early years are, from say for a human being from puberty to menopause, right? For a woman, which could be, just say for the sake of argument, around 50, is really a lot put into reproduction. Well, if there's a famine, right, and there's less food, historically speaking, the body would, a woman would often, not menstruate and would focus on preservation of the body. And so it was, so that exists just based on, natural selection and the human body trying to find a way to persist through environmental stressors, right? So that's the thought behind why calorie restriction has benefits on longevity, is because of this old system that tries to keep the body alive during famines. Okay, so David Sinclair, who's another PhD that you might have heard from, he's a Harvard researcher, and he's involved in so many ventures in healthspan and longevity medicine, came up with a hypothesis that kind of comes off of this theory that calorie restriction might increase the survival capability of organisms because of this highly conserved stress response. So basically, it's a hormesis idea. So small stressors will prime the body's adaptive mechanisms to deal with larger stressors. So for example, if you go for a 1 mile run, right, you are going to, that's a healthy thing in general for most people, because of exercise, we all know it's healthy. you are going to produce free radicals and oxidative damage and so forth. And what does the body do? It ramps up its own internal antioxidants to counter that. And so these small stressors that get ramped up can really help the body adapt to larger stressors and potentially allow the organism to live longer and work through these stressors that we experience. And so that's kind of the hypothesis, and it's consistent throughout different people's perspectives. Because this hormesis hypothesis is based on about 4 different studies that's cited at the end here. Okay, so the goal with calorie restriction is not starvation. Okay, make that clear. Basically, it's the administration of a well-balanced, nutrient-dense diet that's reduced in calories by about 20 to 40%, but does not include malnutrition. Malnutrition is going to harm the organism. Okay, so that's not a good thing. Also, we've learned from primate studies that it is not good to do calorie restriction on human beings during the growing years, that it is actually harmful to the organism if you, like for a human being, are in the first, say, 20 years of your life. So you don't want calorie restriction during the growing years. You do want a fully mature adult before you would even consider doing calorie restriction. And I'll also know, just on a practical standpoint, is really nobody wants to calorie restrict, right? I mean, calorie restriction is hard. People are hungry. It's not something that's easy to do. So it's not really considered something that's a viable option for most populations. But what we learn from it gives us opportunities to, again, see and understand pathways and look for things that will mimic calorie restriction. So here's something interesting from the University of Wisconsin here. So this is the primate calorie restriction trials. And so we saw a 2 to 3-fold impact of extending both median and maximal lifespan in rodents. Okay, so that's not the monkeys here. This is actually rodents. And it also prevented or delayed the onset of age-related disease, obesity, type 2 diabetes, neurodegeneration, cardiomyopathy, and cancer. Okay, so that was from a CR study on rodents, but here's the University of Wisconsin one on primates. And so we basically, the males lived to about 28 years and the females lived to about 30 years. On average, they lived to about 25. So we did see in primates that they got a few extra years of life with a calorie restriction. And this is in captivity. All the data is from captivity. And it was a 30% reduction in calories. So this is really interesting evidence because this is as close to human being basically as you can get without doing it on human beings. All right, and there is a Calorie Restriction International Society. You have people who adhere to this. We don't obviously have any mortality data on this yet because they haven't been doing it long enough, but they do record studies over time. The average person has been doing it for about 15 years. They consume 30% less energy or calories. And they've seen total cholesterol decreases, total cholesterol to HDL cholesterol ratio improvements, triglyceride decreases, diastolic and systolic blood pressure was about 110/70 for most people. And this is folks that are even in their 70s and 80s. C-reactive protein was really low. And then interleukins, tumor necrosis factor, IL-6 were low. Insulin levels were low, glucose were low. So we do believe that all of these things will help with longevity in human beings as well, because certainly there's loads of evidence that show that these markers are positively associated with human health. And then one of the natural extrapolations that has occurred is, can we mimic this with another type of diet? And that's where intermittent fasting comes into play. And so I've been personally intermittent fasting since the beginning of 2009, about a year and a half or so. And so this is really interesting because intermittent fasting is generally feasible by most populations. And so just for clarity, there's a lot of definitions within the fasting group. And then we're coming up closer on time, but this is my last slide here. So there is something called time-restricted eating, which technically is what I do, where I adhere to a eating window, and then there's a period of time where I do not eat. And basically what you're doing is you're extending the overnight fast, which is, you're not eating overnight anyways. I will say, do not calorie restrict or even consider this intermittent fasting like that in any population that has ever had an eating disorder. Okay, just be careful, screen for that. Then there's intermittent fasting and prolonged fast and alternate day fast. There's all sorts of variations of this. In my opinion, I think the time restricted feeding is probably the easiest to do. And we've seen some really interesting studies on diabetes and a lot of improvements in diabetes, doing a 16-hour fast and an 8-hour eating window. This is Walter Longo. He is one of the pioneers on intermittent fasting. He's got a lot of literature out, well published. He's got books out. Really fascinating guy. He is really one of many pioneers in this area. So some of his findings here: routine fasters. Let's see, routine fasters had greater survival over this study here. Okay, we saw that generally we see weight loss in obese adults. We see systolic blood pressure decreases. We see reductions in LDLs. We see improvements in sleep, and then we do see improvements in cardiac performance that are related to age, and then as well as improvements in lipid panels that we know are harmful to arteries, the coronary arteries. So a lot of interesting information from the calorie restriction and intermittent fasting area, and we're only going to see intermittent fasting more and more in the future as more data kind of pours out. And so with that, I went through fast because I had a lot to talk about. So I'm going to now stop and open it up to any sort of questions before we finish up here.
So we do have a couple of questions here. First off, we have a question from Jennifer. She asked if you'll be sharing your PowerPoint with us.
Sure. Let me talk to AIHM about that, and then we'll see. So I think we can get back to you on that one.
Great. I saw one other question come in from Karen. Please address low intensity laser triggering mitochondrial ATP and increasing telomere length and improving cognitive function in those with age-related memory loss and peptides.
Okay. All right. Well, so in 3 minutes, all right, let's see what we can do in 3 minutes with that question. So, all right. So low level laser therapy, otherwise known as cold laser, it's an interesting therapy. I think it's used in a lot in the chiropractic fields. I've seen it in naturopathic communities, pain medicine, integrative environments. So we do see it out there. It has a lot of interesting applications. I can't say that I can say specifically that I am aware of any telomere lengthening studies, but I'm assuming based on the question that somebody has seen one. And so it doesn't surprise me because we've seen in the studies how low-level laser changes the kind of the mitochondrial function and some of the biochemical aspects of the area that you're shooting the beam into. So it doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of therapies out there that change telomere length, including good lifestyle habits. And so we don't yet really know or understand how much the telomere part is crucial to improving health span and lifespan. It's certainly an area that is being researched. It's one of the earliest areas actually that has had a lot of research on it. But where it fits in and how important it's going to be, I think, is yet to be determined. And so the other aspect I'll pull up here from that question is peptides. That is a very interesting question. It's a tricky field right now because it's a kind of a regulatory gray area. So I know that most of these peptides are naturally produced in the human body, and basically we are finding that the production from the human body changes over time, basically with the aging process. And so the thought is if you use some of these peptides that are produced from the thymus and the pituitary gland and the thyroid, that they can go in and have impacts on the endocrine system and other systems as well. And I think it's fascinating. I think it's a really interesting area. I will say that I have done lit reviews on some of these areas, and some of the peptide area has some decent evidence. Others, it's very sparse. So I think it has a lot of potential. But I would really hesitate to make any bold claims about peptides, at least in my opinion right now, because I think we need a lot more data on that. And it's only actually becoming more challenging because of the regulatory landscape and how that's, playing out. But I know some of these are being swept up into, probably going to be FDA approved drugs at some point. And, perhaps from that, it will open up new research and new opportunities to understand it better.
Oops, you're muted.
Thanks, Jess. We had another couple questions come in. The first one, how do you experience blood thinners effect on aging?
Interesting. The effect of blood thinners on aging. Well, I mean, certainly we know the effect of blood thinners on likelihood of, a life, a clotting disorder such as a stroke or a coronary artery blockage, right? So that's how it's used conventionally medically, in the conventional medical field. So it definitely kind of helps just on that end of things in preventing mortality. But I'm not aware, or I've never seen any research on how it may impact specifically longevity. And I think you would actually need to do a little research on specifically the individual drugs, because you get different classes. Like Coumadin is very different than the newer non-vitamin K based blood thinners. Like aspirin has some interesting potential. It shows lower colon cancer rates, as well as potentially, helping to prevent, clotting disorders and coronary artery disease and so forth. So I can't say that I have a great answer for you, but I do think you do need to break it down by the drug and go look and see if there's been any data on it. I'd say more promising right now in terms of something having a positive impact is the diabetic medications, whether it be SGLT2 inhibitors or metformin, and some of the others are being looked at as well. Those have some really promising early results on longevity that I think is very interesting.
Nice. And we are out of time, so I'm sorry if we weren't able to get to all of the questions today. Thank you so much, Dr. McNally. That was amazingly fascinating. That was a really interesting talk.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. And with that, if you could unshare your screen, I'm going to go ahead and just go over a couple of quick things before we close out. All right. I would like to welcome you all to join us for the next wellness webinar, which is going to be on Friday, August 20th. This one is going to be about eating the rainbow, the science of colorful plant-based food and practical strategies. And this is going to be hosted by Dr. Deanna Minich. So we'd love to have you there. And then I'd also like to announce that registration is now open for our annual conference, People, Planet, Purpose. This is going to be a hybrid event. We're going to have limited in-person seating, so do make sure to register early. And then if you're not comfortable coming in person yet, we do have a virtual option as well. That's going to be at Paradise Point in San Diego, California. And also we want to invite you to connect with us on social media. We're on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. We also would love for you to become a member or join a local chapter or student alliance, all of which can be done on our website. Great, and thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see you at future wellness webinars. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you.
Can you end it?
Yep.